Now to explain and help us understand what's happening as we move forward is Dr. Robert Sanders from the University of New Haven. He's a former prosecutor, has extensive expertise with national security. And Dr. Sanders, a big day in the legal world here, an unprecedented indictment of a former sitting president of the United States. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Glad to be with you, and you're correct on all points. Unprecedented event. Never happened before in the history of the nation.
Obviously, this indictment, now that it's unsealed, we're getting a look at the different charges that were involved, 34 counts that we didn't know prior to President Trump going into court today. Now that we have that indictment unsealed, what surprised you? What stood out to you? It was a court hearing over 50 minutes long.
Well, it's very informative. Two big pieces to this. One was the attachment of facts that the DA provided, which laid out the scheme as he identified it. Didn't call it a conspiracy, but called it a scheme, in which to hide this money and make these illegal payments that in fact defrauded the voters from knowing the real truth about the candidate that they were going to vote for. And we now see the three pathways in which this money was moved around, in which these payments caused the business records to be done in an unlawful manner. The first, as you mentioned a minute ago, was through Stormy Daniels, who's actually listed as woman number 2 in the indictment. The second was woman number 1, who's also received a payoff, but hers was run through one of the tabloids in New York City, which agreed to help Trump cover up his alleged misdeeds with women and whoever else he needed to have paid off, and had hush money provided them to keep them quiet before the election. And lastly, a doorman, or a former doorman at one of the buildings where Trump lived, who allegedly came forward with a story that Trump was the father of an illegitimate child conceived and born during his marriage. And he was also paid a certain amount of money to keep that story quiet. They actually have an interesting name for these stories, hushing them up. It's called catch and kill. Catch the story, pay off the other individual, and then kill it by having them sign away all the rights to talk about it to anybody else.
Dr. Sanders, you know, federal prosecutors had looked at this case and chosen not to move forward with it. The Manhattan DA said that today that he had more information than they did. What's your take on that?
Well, it was an interview just recently by the current DA's predecessor that said that when he left office, there were parts of the investigation that had not yet been completed. And so clearly, in the interim between that individual leaving office and the current DA coming on board, additional investigation was done, and they were able to determine that there was the ability to charge under New York law. Now, remember, the federal government and New York are two different jurisdictions. They have complete autonomy to do what they think they need to do. The facts may be the same, the players may be the same, and the circumstances may be the same, but two jurisdictions, each has their own law, and each has an ability to move forward with it.
The next date we saw, Professor, was December 4th, I believe, for an in-person hearing. What happened? There's a lot of time between now and then. Is just a whole bunch of motions made on both sides, or what happens next?
Yeah, there'll be lots of motions. There's speculation the defense is going to move to try to move the case out of Manhattan into Staten Island. Staten Island is a place where there's the home of many, many, many New York City policemen, a much more conservative, a wider constituency, which a jury pool would be more to Donald Trump's liking. Other motions to dismiss, saying that, in fact, like to your last question, that there is actually no case here, no jurisdiction, no facts that a jury could reasonably believe that an offense was committed by Donald Trump. They're going to move to dismiss as many of these as they can. The judge will take a look at that and make determinations. There may be motions in limine, which are motions before court to look at certain pieces of evidence and decide whether or not they're going to be allowed to be seen by the jury. I'm sure there's going to be information around that and statements by people who they want to keep out and who the government wants to keep in. So they're going to play this paper game back and forth. all the way up until we actually get into court in December again, when all these issues should have been settled. The judge will put them all on the record, and they'll move forward with jury selection if there's nothing else to litigate prior to that.
It's going to be a long road, that's for sure. Dr. Robert Sanders from the University of New Haven, we appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Dr. Sanders.
You're welcome, but this is only the first road. There's two more potentially. There's a federal indictment and there's one in Georgia.
Which means we'll be seeing each other
Exactly.
again.
We will be talking
A
with
lot.
you again.
We appreciate
Should be
it.
around this trip again.
Thank you.
Sounds like